I still feel like I'm the younger, fresher fighter, and I gained nothing but experience from the fight. I'm expecting a hard fight, so you want to make sure that you're well equipped to do so, and you've done everything in training to make sure that you're able to withstand the hard shots, able to withstand the intensity you're going to have to go through in there. I've got my family next door, a little kiss and a cuddle, and then I've got my team in my annex, which is strictly busy. Like, we're really separated. I've got my own gym here, I've got my own hyperbaric, infrared bed, sauna outside, all my recovery. My chef lives 2 minutes up the road. I fly my coaches in. That's all money. But I want the best. I want to give myself every best opportunity I can in order to be victorious, or give people the fight of the century.
Where's the actual work start?
Me and him are very different in that terms. I mean, see me with Tony, I'll see my career through with Tony. There's that bond of relationship there. Like, you know, every time you lose a fight and a hard fight, you don't just switch coaches. In my opinion, for me, you got me to the level where I'm at now. My team are my team. Do you know what I mean? Through and through. Same people. I ain't got nobody different around me. All the same people. Everyone's saying I'm out of my depth here, I'm gonna get knocked out. Am I delusional, or are they right? What am I missing? Because I'm looking at him going, yeah, I fancy my challenges. In fact, I'm a fighter, so I don't look at him as no threat. It takes two to tango, and I appreciate him for bringing that fight out in me. I mean, it feels like everything's just ripped. It stars. I think the power of speaking things into the universe is real. Yeah, I can't lose to him again. It's hard, but it's not my main fuel. I mean, it's all gang too. Whereas then you got me on the other hand, flip side, which is very emotional, very intense. Conor, this is my life. I'm based my pride and confidence on my level of hard work. Not because I'm God gifted, not because I'm explosive genetics, or not because I take all the pride and the self-belief from my hard work. I outwork everybody. With modern day gladiators, I don't respect nobody who goes in there and just wants to nick it on points. I want to win in a spectacular fashion, or go out giving it everything I got.
The gloves are back on. The tension is rising, and the boxing world is about to witness one of the most explosive rematches in recent history. Conor Benn has officially entered his final training camp, and what he's bringing to the ring this time could completely change the game. After a controversial first encounter that left fans divided and experts questioning what went wrong, Benn is back with a vengeance, and insiders are saying he's not just ready, he's evolved. This isn't the same fighter who stepped into the ring before. This is a man on a mission, and Chris Eubank Jr. better be paying attention, because the storm that's coming might be more than he can handle. Conor Benn has just kicked off his final prep for the upcoming rematch against Chris Eubank Jr., and the anticipation surrounding this fight is absolutely massive. We're talking about two fighters with legendary last names, carrying the weight of their fathers' legacies on their shoulders, ready to settle unfinished business in the most brutal way possible. The first fight between these two was nothing short of explosive, a back-and-forth war that had fans on the edge of their seats, but it left questions unanswered and controversy swirling. Now, as Benn dives deep into training camp, the boxing community is watching every move, analyzing every statement, trying to predict what's going to happen when these two warriors clash again. This rematch isn't just about pride anymore. It's about proving who truly belongs at the top of the middleweight division, and Benn is making it crystal clear that he's not planning to leave any doubt this time around. But here's where things get really interesting. According to Frank Smith, someone who's been closely monitoring Benn's preparation and mindset, the Conor Benn we're about to see is fundamentally different from the fighter.
Maybe you can't afford to switch up. Do you know what I mean? That's why we're getting mentally prepared. It's hard, like you said, it's harder in here than it is in the ring.
But then, Thursday, 12 steps, killer. By the end of the week, you just like...
I got them tomorrow.
You were like dreaming, weren't you?
I skipped the sprints. He's getting still dreaming.
He was dreaming about me running.
I skipped the sprints, but I got them tomorrow.
Yeah.
Heartbreaker. Chris, he's hitting hard. He hit me today. I nearly went to sleep. Don't be getting... Yo, listen, he's gonna...
I knew it. I thought I seen something.
Nah, listen, honestly, it's 15th of November, it's on. So be ready. My boy's ready.
Listen to him, bro. Listen to him. That's right. Come on. Easy work.
Who entered that first bout? Smith has gone on record stating that Benn will approach this rematch with significantly more control and maturity. And that's huge. Think about what that means for a second. The first fight saw Benn come out with raw aggression, heart, and an almost reckless determination to prove himself. He fought with emotion, with fire, with everything he had, but sometimes that kind of intensity can work against you. Sometimes you need more than just heart. You need strategy, composure, and the ability to stay calm under the most intense pressure. And that's exactly what Smith is suggesting Benn has developed. He's grown through experience, he's learned from mistakes of the first encounter, and now he handles pressure in a completely different way. This isn't speculation. This is coming from someone who's seen the transformation firsthand, the contrast between the first fight mentality and where Benn is now mentally cannot be overstated. In that initial matchup, Benn was hungry, eager to prove he belonged in the same ring as Eubank, desperate to show the world that he was more than just his father's son. That desperation, while admirable, created moments where he overextended, where he let emotion dictate his movements rather than calculated strategy. But fighters evolve. The great ones learn from their experiences and come back better, sharper, more dangerous. And if Frank Smith's assessment is accurate, that's precisely what's happened here. Benn has taken the lessons from that first fight, absorbed them, and transformed himself into a more complete fighter. The mental evolution alone could be the difference maker in this rematch, because boxing at the highest level isn't just about physical ability. It's about what's happening between the ears. It's about staying composed when the pressure is mounting, about making smart decisions when your body is screaming at you to just swing wildly. And Benn, according to those closest to his camp, has mastered that aspect of the game in a way he simply hadn't before. Now let's talk about the physical side of things, because this is where the narrative gets even more compelling. Eddie Hearn, one of the most prominent promoters in boxing and someone who's seen countless fighters prepare for massive bouts, recently visited Benn's training camp and came away genuinely impressed, maybe even shocked by what he witnessed. Hearn observed that Benn looks stronger and more complete at 160 pounds than he's ever looked before, and when someone like Hearn makes that kind of statement, you need to pay attention. This isn't just promotional hype. This is a legitimate assessment from someone who knows what championship-level physiques look like. Hearn specifically pointed out that Benn's build has transformed dramatically. He's thicker, more muscular, carrying significantly more mass than he did in the first fight. And that additional size isn't just for show. It translates directly into power.
But I think going into this fight, Conor, like you say, much more calm, relaxed. He's been here, he's done it. He's been in in that environment now. But at the same time, Chris is going to come better. You've seen it, you know, again, on his camp. You've seen the posts he's been putting up. So you're going to see a better version of both of them. It's like, but how much did the last fight take out of Chris? How much did the last fight? Conor's much younger than Chris. You know, you can play it every which way. But I think that the fact that Conor is now much more composed is going to be much better for him in the fight.
The specific physical changes Hearn noted paint a picture of a fighter who's completely optimized his body for this weight class. Benn's waist looks bigger, more solid, providing a stronger base for generating torque in his punches. His legs have developed additional muscle mass, giving him more explosive power for footwork and the ability to plant and deliver devastating combinations. His trunk, his core, the foundation of all punching power, has visibly increased in size and density. These aren't minor cosmetic changes. These are fundamental improvements to his physical capabilities as a fighter. And here's what makes this so significant. In their first encounter, Eubank had certain physical advantages that he was able to exploit. But if Benn has legitimately added this kind of functional muscle mass while maintaining his speed and conditioning, those advantages might have just evaporated. The implications are massive. A stronger, more physically imposing Benn who's also mentally more composed and strategically sharper? That's a nightmare scenario for any opponent, and Eubank Jr. should be taking this development very, very seriously. But while Benn appears to be ascending, building on his strengths and addressing his weaknesses, questions are swirling around Chris Eubank Jr. that simply cannot be ignored. Jamie Moore, a respected figure in the boxing world with decades of experience, has highlighted some critical vulnerabilities in Eubank's situation heading into this rematch, and his analysis is brutal in its honesty. Moore pointed directly at Eubank Jr.'s age as a significant factor, and while that might sound harsh, it's a reality that every fighter eventually faces. Eubank is an ancient by boxing standards, but he's been in this sport for a long time, accumulating what Moore described as serious miles on the clock. Those miles matter. Every hard sparring session, every grueling fight, every time you push your body to its absolute limit, it takes something out of you that you never fully get back. It's the harsh truth of combat sports, but Moore's concerns don't stop at age, though. He specifically mentioned the difficulty Eubank has been experiencing with cutting weight, and this is absolutely crucial context for understanding the dynamics of this rematch. Making weight isn't just about stepping on a scale. It's about your body's ability to...
Like up now at 160, he just looks thicker. You know, he's got, you know, his waist looks bigger, his legs look bigger, his trunk looks bigger. And I was just really impressed with, I mean, I've got to say, not met many people in boxing that work as hard as Conor Benn. Phenomenal athlete, incredible work ethic, but just a smartness about his work and a maturity about his work. And I've always felt that he can beat Eubank, but I left that gym feeling really, really confident that he beats Eubank. And listen, Eubank was surprised in that first fight. There was no doubt about it. He got the shock of his life. And he will be working very hard with Bomac and the team. And I expect a better Chris Eubank. But Conor was poor last time. He knows that. Tony knows that. Like he can be so much better than that. And I really believe he's going to get this performance right. I really believe he's going to win the fight.
To shed pounds while maintaining strength, speed, and most importantly, the ability to recover and rehydrate properly before fight night. When weight cuts become increasingly difficult, it's often a sign that your body is struggling with the demands being placed on it. It can leave you depleted, weakened, vulnerable. And if Eubank is genuinely having trouble making 160, if the cut is taking more out of him than it used to, then he's walking into that ring at a disadvantage before the first bell even rings. Moore positioned these factors as major concerns for a reason, because they're not just minor issues that can be worked around. They're fundamental problems that could determine the entire outcome of this fight. Age, accumulated damage from years of fighting, and weight-cutting difficulties. That's a dangerous combination of vulnerabilities, and Benn's team would be foolish not to target every single one of them. So we've established that Benn appears to be improving both mentally and physically, while Eubank is facing legitimate questions about his age and ability to make weight effectively. But how does Benn actually capitalize on these advantages when they're standing across from each other in that ring? This is where Tim Bradley's analysis becomes absolutely essential. Bradley, a former world champion who understands elite-level boxing as well as anyone, believes Benn can not just win, but actually stop Eubank if he fights smarter this time around. And Bradley didn't just make a vague prediction. He provided specific tactical advice that breaks down exactly what Benn needs to do differently to get that stoppage victory. First and foremost, Bradley emphasized the importance of lateral movement. In the first fight, Benn had a tendency to retreat straight back when Eubank pressed forward, and that's boxing fundamentals 101. You never want to move straight back against a fighter with reach and power. Moving straight back allows your opponent to close distance effectively and catch you with extended punches. Instead, Bradley is advocating for Benn to move sideways, to create angles, to make Eubank constantly adjust and reset rather than allowing him to march forward in straight lines. This kind of movement not only keeps you safer defensively, it also creates offensive opportunities, because you are hitting your opponent from angles they're not fully prepared for. It's smart, effective boxing, and it's something Benn absolutely needs to implement.
The big points for me, Eubank's age, miles on the clock, making weight. There's a lot of questions there in the context of, but I'm talking from experience here now. When you get to that stage of your career, I actually never got to that stage in terms of that level where Eubank's been, but I mean like miles on the clock. When you go to the well, and you go to the well, there's a point where you go, fuck, there's no water here, and at some point Eubank's going to get there. And I feel like towards the end of that fight last time, he was running on empty. And in all honesty, Conor Benn really started to go through the gears at the end. And fair play, Eubank clung on and he did enough and he won the fight fair and square. But at some point, where's he going to go? I'm going to the well, and the making weight and the rehydration clause and the relentlessness of Ben, will that get into play? Because he might get to round 4 and 5 and it starts getting tough and he goes, what the fuck am I doing here again under these circumstances? And also you got to take into account Conor, he's younger, he's got more growth in terms of learning lessons, so he's probably improved from the first fight. So then you've got to be thinking, if he has improved, that's probably enough. If you sort of get the balance right of Conor's improved from the first fight and learnt the lessons, and as it took a lot out of Eubank, then for me it brings it back to level playing field again. So it remains to be seen, but it's a hell of a fight.
Beyond movement, Bradley stressed the critical importance of staying composed. Emotional control might not sound as exciting as knockout power, but it's what separates good fighters from great ones. Ben's intensity and passion are part of what makes him exciting to watch, but Bradley is suggesting that he needs to channel that energy more efficiently, getting reckless, swinging wildly, expending massive amounts of energy on punches that don't land. These are the mistakes that cost fights. Controlled aggression, calculated violence, that's what wins championships. And finally, Bradley talked about landing clean punches down the middle, straight shots that travel the shortest distance and have the highest probability of landing with maximum impact. In the first fight, Ben threw a lot of wide, looping punches that looked devastating but often missed the mark. Bradley is advocating for tighter, more technical striking, punches that come straight down the pipe and don't give Eubank time to react. These tactical adjustments might sound simple, but implementing them under the pressure and chaos of a high-level fight is incredibly difficult. If Ben can actually execute Bradley's game plan, the outcome of this rematch could be dramatically different. And then there's Johnny Nelson's assessment, which might be the most damning analysis of all for Chris Eubank Jr. Nelson, never one to mince words, gave an absolutely blunt take on this rematch that should send shivers down Eubank's spine. Nelson acknowledged that Eubank will undoubtedly give his best effort, that he'll train hard and come prepared. But here's the devastating part. Nelson doesn't believe Eubank has shown much improvement since the first fight. Think about what that means. If you're essentially the same fighter you were in the first encounter, but your opponent has evolved significantly in multiple areas, you're already behind before the fight even starts. Nelson's observation cuts straight to the core of Eubank's problem. Where does he go from here? What does he have left to...
Conor Benn can knock him out. Conor Benn can knock him out in the rematch. Oh, yeah. Couple things he got to do, though. You know, boxing one-on-one, man, when you're fighting a taller guy, you never want to step back in straight lines. You want to exit the sides. He stepped back in straight lines. He allowed Eubank to extend with those long arms, so he's getting caught on the end of his shots a lot of the times. Another thing, early on, got too reckless. You got to be more reserved, my man. Act like you've been there before. You got to control those emotions. All right? A lot of swinging, a lot of wild swinging, a lot of energy wasted early that you could have had on the back end and you could have finished stronger. But you didn't. You wasted a lot of energy swinging that air. Mad, intense. Hey, controlled aggression. That's what it got to be, Conor Benn. Controlled. Another thing. Straight punches. Straighten your shots out, man. You had a lot of success when you was letting those punches just fly right from the chin. 1-2, right down the middle. Yeah, you was landing that right hand. See, there's a big mistake that a taller guy makes, like Eubank Jr. And what he does is he throws a jab from mid-range. That's a big no-no. You can't be doing that. He throws a jab from mid-range. Even when he got the range and the height and the reach, he's still stepping in, closing the gap. And that's the perfect opportunity for Conor Benn to load up with a big right hand. He did it occasionally. He caught him with it. Yes, you know, he caught him with it. However, a lot of wide shots over the top.
But Nelson didn't stop there. He made one of the most telling observations anyone has made about that first fight. He said that if Eubank could have stopped Ben in their initial encounter, he absolutely would have. Eubank had opportunities. He had moments where Ben was hurt or vulnerable, and he couldn't finish the job. That reveals something fundamental about Eubank's capabilities at this stage of his career. It shows his ceiling, his limitations, what he's truly capable of against an opponent of Ben's caliber and toughness. And here's the terrifying implication for Eubank. If he threw everything he had at Ben the first time and couldn't get him out of there, and now Ben is coming back better in every measurable way while Eubank appears to be stagnating or even declining, what happens when they meet again? The math simply doesn't work in Eubank's favor. So here we are, with all the pieces laid out on the table. Conor Benn entering his final training camp with enhanced mental maturity, a significantly improved physique optimized for 160, and a clear tactical game plan provided by some of the sharpest minds in boxing. On the other side, Chris Eubank Jr. facing legitimate questions about his age, the toll of years in the sport, difficulties making weight, and apparent limitations to his improvement trajectory. The narrative arc couldn't be clearer. This is building toward what could be a career-defining moment for Conor Benn and potentially a harsh reality check for Eubank Jr. The experts have spoken, the evidence is mounting, and the boxing world is watching with bated breath to see if Ben can capitalize on everything that appears to be working in his favor. This rematch has all the ingredients for an absolutely explosive encounter, and when that bell rings, we'll to find out if Conor Benn's evolution is real or if Chris Eubank Jr. still has something left to prove everyone wrong.
Chris will give himself every possible chance that's going, but in reality, you know, personally, I just think the last performance of Chris, I thought, you've got nothing left. You've got no, there's no more improvement on what I'm seeing there. And I know there was a weight issue and all the build up to it. I thought there's no more improvement there.
Does that mean you think do you think Conor Benn will be better in the second fight?
Yes.
Does that mean that you think that by him being better and there's no more left from Chris Eubank, that Conor Benn's able to bridge the gap and get an outcome in his second fight?
Without a doubt.
You do?
He couldn't have done any more. If he could have knocked out Conor in that fight, he would have done.
Yeah.
He just couldn't get rid of him. And Conor stuck it. So regardless of him being surprised that Conor stuck it out a lot more, he couldn't get rid